Ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and introduce Domingo Garcia. He is the elected highest representative of the League of United Latin American Citizens, Lulac, to present the people's indictment against Texas Attorney General Kenneth Paxton. Sir, go ahead.
Today, Lulac is announcing that we are requesting that the District Attorney's Office in Tarrant County and in Travis County and Collin County look into criminal conduct by Ken Paxton over the course of the last 3 years. For example, in October 12th of 2018, by the way, he has a tendency to file voter fraud charges against African Americans and Latinos 1 month before elections. This one was October 12th. They arrested 4 Latinas in Fort Worth, Tarrant County, alleging that they were engaged in voter fraud. As of today, 2 years later, none of them have been convicted of anything. The fact of the matter is, these are bogus charges and a tactic of voter suppression. And if we look at the history, purging 98,000 voters, predominantly Mexican American, last year, that Lulac had to file a lawsuit because their names were not equivalent. Knowing that these were U.S. citizens who were registered voters, Texans, Americans, and yet that attempt was only stopped because we had to file in court and deny the Secretary of State's confirmation. The allegations against the Attorney General of Texas, Mr. Paxton, go beyond that. It's abuse of office, it's official oppression, and the latest charges of bribery, undue influence, his indictments already by the grand jury for ethics and U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission fraud, and the use of campaign funds are just the latest of what we've seen as just criminal conduct coming from what is supposed to be the people's attorney, the Attorney General of Texas. And therefore, we're asking also that the State Bar of Texas look into the allegations, because this is conduct unbecoming of an attorney, much less of an Attorney General. And these are serious allegations made by his top deputies. In addition to the people's lives that he's ruined and this vain search for voter fraud that doesn't exist, but is a way to try to destroy the right of every Texan to vote. Just recently, he has sued Harris County, trying to prohibit them from doing mail ballots. He's put in jeopardy the lives of seniors, especially Hispanic seniors, by refusing to allow them to vote and drop off mail ballots, for example, at voting locations. And this voter suppression is the real crime. There is no voter fraud. There is no evidence of voter fraud. There never has been. There is evidence of voter suppression, abuse of power, and the use of the Attorney General's office to try to stop Latinos from voting. And that has to stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to turn now to Rodolfo Rosales. He is the State Director for Lulac in Texas.
Well, thank you, David, and thank you, Mr. President. We really take your lead on this. And as the State Director of Texas, I want to let our President know, as well as everyone out there in Facebook land and around, that we're not going to stand by and allow this Attorney General to sit up there and lay judgment on us when he himself has to face judgment. And I will just keep it brief and say that we echo everything that the President has said. We stand strongly behind our national office. We hope that Texas can take the lead in working with the different prosecutors, whether it's in Tarrant or Harris County, that we do bring this gentleman to justice. And as my mother likes to say, Ms. Rosa Rosales, who was a past national president, justice delayed is justice denied. This gentleman has charges we already know that have already been implemented against him, and for whatever reason, he has still not faced justice. And he owes it to the proud people of Texas, as well as the proud people of this country, to step up to the plate and face the charges before him. As far as the new allegations that are coming against him, this is just beyond disgraceful. It's shameful. And as the State Director, I am asking him to step down and to resign effective immediately, as he cannot truly be the moral compass of the state of Texas. So with that, Mr. Cruz, I'll leave it by saying this. I need all our Lulacers in Texas and across the nation to come together, support our national president, and let's get justice. Justice delayed is justice denied.
Thank you, Mr. Rosales, State Director for Texas. We turn now to the president of a council in Austin, Texas, Ms. Gloria Leal, herself an attorney at law. Gloria.
Yes, good morning. My name is Gloria Leal, and I'm president of Lulac Council 650, one of the oldest councils in Texas. I would just like to remind everyone that Lulac is the oldest, longest existing national organization that supports the rights of Hispanics in the state and in the nation. With that said, we joined National Lulac and our president, Domingo Garcia, in opposing voter suppression at all levels. We joined National Lulac in the call to be vigilant against all efforts to suppress the rights of Hispanics, minorities, women, LGBT, the elderly, disabled, to exercise their right to vote in a fair and equitable manner. At this time, I am asking all LULAC members to sign up and join us in this effort by volunteering on election day to be an election judge or an election monitor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leal. Mr. President, I want to ask you a question that's coming in from viewers, and that is, we understand there's a lawsuit that has been filed against the governor of Texas. What is happening there, and how does this relate with this pattern you've described involving the Attorney General?
As you know, over 55% of the deaths of COVID-19 in the state of Texas are among Latino seniors. These are the ones that are most at risk if they go vote in person. These are the ones that are going to be voting by mail. And what we've seen from Governor Abbott, who's a former Attorney General, is that in Harris County, for example, in Houston, Texas, the largest one in Texas, they had 11 or 12 voting locations where seniors could drop off their ballot to make sure it's counted, to make sure that it's filed and correctly done. Yet the governor, by executive order, said that every county in Texas would only have one drop-off location. That means people would have to get in lines. Seniors would have to possibly risk their health and their lives to go vote at the one location in Harris County, which has over 4 million people. And they would have the same one location as, let's say, Ward County with 1,000 people in Texas, in far west Texas. It makes no sense unless you know what the motive is. The motive is not about ballot security. The motive is voter suppression. They want to stop seniors from voting by mail. They want to stop African American, Latino seniors from voting. And we've seen this in Texas year after year after year, whether it was the poll tax, the white-only primary, voter ID, the purging of voters from the polls, putting police officers in front of polling locations. We've seen this play over and over again, and it has to stop. We are only asking that we be allowed to cast our ballot like every other American, to be given that and a free and easy way to do that, not by putting obstacle after obstacle. Lulac has had to sue the state of Texas every 10 years since 1970 for gerrymandering, for trying to rig the elections so that Latinos cannot elect candidates of their choice. It's disgraceful, it's immoral, un-American, un-Texan, un-Christian, and it's illegal also.
Mr. President, we got a question from a reporter who's in Philadelphia asking, we've seen record turnout already in states up in the northern parts of America. What do you think will be happening in your state of Texas?
We're seeing already record requests for mail ballots across the state of Texas. We believe this is why Governor Abbott is seeing the same numbers we're seeing. Voter registration, we have over 2 million new voters. In 2018, when Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz ran, we have now registered over 2 million new voters that have never voted before. They will probably be voting for the first time. And we've seen an interest, especially among Latino voters, to turn out and vote. The fact of the matter is, Texas is turning into a purple state. And instead of allowing and making your pitch for why Republicans should get Latino votes, what we're seeing is rigging the system, changing the rules at the last minute. And that's just, again, things that didn't need to happen under the Voting Rights Act, but ever since it's been vetted by the Supreme Court, we're seeing that politicians are trying to choose their voters instead of voters choosing their politicians.
For Ms. Leal from Florida, a reporter is asking, if LULAC is nonpartisan, why are you suing the governor of Texas?
Well, to clarify, I'm not involved in the litigation, but and Lulac is a nonpartisan organization, yes, but there are issues that confront the organization and the voting public that are not of a partisan nature. So it is the mandate of Lulac to be vigilant and monitor all efforts that are undertaken that hurt the Hispanic community. And so Lulac is the greatest advocacy or the largest advocacy organization for Hispanics, Latinos in Texas and the United States. So when Lulac files a lawsuit against certain individuals, it is not undertaken as a partisan issue, but rather because there are substantive issues that impact the Hispanic community. In this particular case, if it involves voter suppression or efforts to impair the right and the privilege to vote, then Lulac, through MALDEF, will undertake that responsibility.
Thank you, Ms. Leal. Mr. Rosales from San Antonio, the question that is coming from a reporter is, you're there in one of the oldest communities for your organization. What is your county doing? Do you know if they have also limited to only one drop-off location? I don't have that fact, so I don't know.
Yeah, so that's why we're in litigation, because the city of San Antonio, or Bexar County, okay, and the election clerk basically has one operating election office, okay? So based on the legislation that has been passed and is already law, that means that you can drop it off at any operating, as per the definition and the interpretation, at any viable working election office. So in San Antonio, based on the fact that we only have the one election office, we're kind of mute in this situation in that we don't have satellites that are operating such as Harris County, and hence the lawsuit against the governor. And I want to go a little bit deeper in answering that previous question from Florida, in that this is not or has nothing to do with partisan politics. This is any governor who was sitting atop the state of Texas, we would file a lawsuit if they were openly trying to suppress the vote. And I just want to finish by saying this. This is so blatant. Houston has many nicknames. One of them, the most famous, the Bayou City. Another one that has come up recently is one of the most diverse cities, or the most diverse city in the United States. I want people to be perfectly clear on what this governor is doing. This has nothing to do with Democrats, nothing to do with Republicans. This has all to do with access to voting in what many people call the most diverse city in America.
Thank you, Rodolfo Rosales. I'm sorry to be looking away, Mr. President, but I'm getting this question now. What about the poll watchers? We heard the president encourage his followers to go to the polls and watch carefully what was going on. Is that a dog whistle, or what is the role of poll watchers?
Well, Lulac is launching Operation Protect the Vote. We will be having observers and monitors at various locations and a phone number to call if we receive any voter intimidation. What we've seen in the past is that if you have some militia guy and military outfits with arms at polling locations and they say they're a voting monitor, no, that's intimidation that will be tolerated, and we will be asked that they be removed. We will challenge anybody who tries to intimidate any voter, who tries to make sure or stop anybody from voting. And if we hear that, we intend to send attorneys and monitors to monitor those complaints.
So intimidation should be reported. I just want to be clear. If you guys want to mute your microphones, thank you. And Mr. Rosales, Mr. Garcia, just to be clear, because there is a follow-up question. Did you say that poll watchers have to be, do they wear any kind of distinctive identification? How do you know, is the question, whether someone is an official poll watcher or is merely trying to intimidate the voters?
Under Texas Election Code, there is a form that a poll watcher fills out and gives to the election judge. Normally, they represent a candidate. Say, if you have two congressional candidates and one of the candidates wants to make sure that the election's fair, he or she will send a poll watcher who fills out a form, gives it to the election judge, and the election judge knows that they're a legitimate poll watcher for one of the candidates.
Okay. And then the last question that I see, unless another one has come in, Mr. Rosales, I know you're not involved in the lawsuit either, but this is going before a court tomorrow. However, there are people who are concerned that the damage has been done, that some people are not going to vote because they don't trust the mail service. How do you best recommend people get their ballot counted?
Well, you know, I want to quote a gentleman he was in line, I believe, in one of the early voting poll places in a Midwestern state. I don't recall the state that had the early voting, but he said, if I have to crawl over broken glass to get my vote so that it's counted. So I hope it doesn't come to that, and I'm using that as an analogy, but I want people to know that your vote is secure. We had the attorney, well, what do you call it, the director of the FBI, Mr. Ray, who came out publicly and said that he will defend our rights to have a fair and honest election, and all votes will be counted. So we have to take him for his word. But what I want to get out there to everybody is like that gentleman from the Midwest who said that. If you have to crawl over broken glass, if you have to do what you got to do to get to the poll to vote, do not be intimidated. Do not be scared. There were people who literally fought in front lines and
That's okay.
gave us this right. And we need to support what our forefathers did before us and fight for our right to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Rosales. Excuse me, Mr. President, I know you've got to go, but Associated Press from Houston is asking, are there other legal groups, major legal groups that are participating and supporting Lulac in dealing with this election litigation of what's going on right now?
We reached out to our partners, the NAACP and the Anti-Defamation League, to join us, as well as the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters have already joined us in the lawsuit against the governor of Texas. They are, again, a nonpartisan, neutral organization, but they want to protect the right of people to vote, and in a pandemic, the right to vote in a safe, healthy manner. And so, yes, we have other organizations that are joining us. And the lawsuit, by the way, the hearing is tomorrow at 1 o'clock via Zoom, and we should have a decision from the federal judge regarding the litigation and trying to limit the number of voting locations for absentee ballots in Texas.
Thank you. Ms. Leal from New Mexico, a LULAC member, a woman, is asking, is it true that Latinas are going to determine the outcome of the 2020 election? How important is it for us, the women of LULAC, to also vote?
Well, I think it is not only a privilege, but your duty to vote. And certainly, according to the commentary and the pollsters, it is the women that are probably going to determine the outcome of the election, like we have in the past. And this is just not minority women, but all women. There are specific efforts being directed by both parties on this end to reach the independent vote, the conservative woman, the suburban woman, the women that sometimes tend to vote one way versus the other, to bring them out to vote, because there are so many issues that are going to be impacted by the next election, by the next leaders that determine our right to be, our quality of life, our access to healthcare, and our access to many, many government functions and provisions that will be determined by our state and government leaders. So yes, it is imperative that Latinas vote and that they vote right, and you vote your conscience on behalf of the Hispanic community. Thank
and
you.
again, forgive me for being distracted, but we're getting questions. Mr.
And soccer
President,
moms. And soccer moms.
27 days left, Mr. President. The question is, your final word for the voters, not just in Texas, they say, but in Ohio, in the battleground states, in Michigan, and in Wisconsin, if I read that correctly. What's your advice today?
Tu voto vale. Your vote is worth a lot. And a lot of people have made sacrifices so that we can get our vote out. So I want every Jose and Maria to go out there and get their tias, their tios, their compadres, comadres to go and vote. I want to make sure that our voices are heard all the way from the state capitals of Austin and Sacramento, and Wisconsin, Idaho, Iowa, to Washington, D.C. The fact of the matter is, this is the first year that Latinos will be the largest minority ethnic voting bloc in the United States. And we want to make sure that that is heard by both Republicans and Democrats, and that our concerns, especially in this pandemic and its impact on our community, both health-wise and economic, is dealt with in an appropriate manner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Domingo Garcia, National President of the League of United Latin American Citizens, Mr. Rosales, State Director for the state of Texas, and our esteemed attorney, Lulac Council President for Council 650, Gloria Leal in Austin. We thank each and every one of you, and we thank you, the members of the media who have been providing your questions, and also members of Lulac throughout the country. Have a wonderful day. We will see each other November 3rd, but don't forget, early voting is already open in many parts of America. Thank you very much. Have a good day.